On this week's episode of the RAG podcast, I interviewed Phillip Atkins, who's the MD and founder of Off to Work, a niche events and hospitality recruitment business headquartered in London with 8 offices around the UK and 110 staff. He started it in 1999 and then took it on full-time in 2000. And he's got a really unique story because the guy never ever worked in recruitment. He was working in hospitality and events. So he had a range of roles working in some really prestigious companies and events, and I guess decided that there was a better way to source staff that he wanted to address, and he's taken that on, and in 20 years he's built an amazing business which he's still very much involved, unbelievably passionate about his clients and the market, and really open about the fact that he was too late to do certain things, but really humble guy as well, really genuine person. So this is 1 hour of real interesting information that I'm hoping you guys get loads of value from. And without further ado, Phillip, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sean. Great
to have you in on this beautiful, wet June evening.
Yeah, it's that.
Well, I left for work this morning. It was beautiful sunshine. And most people who listen to this podcast will know I'm getting married next week, so I talk about it a lot.
Okay.
But you imagine a June wedding, 29th of June, it's going to be sunny, right?
Yeah.
And every day over the last couple of weeks, I wake up and it's nice, and by the afternoon it's like this, and I'm like, oh, it's going to rain on the day.
And where are you getting married?
In Chigwell in East London.
Okay.
Yeah.
What type of wedding is it?
She's Turkish, so it's a Turkish-English... well, it's mainly Turkish, to be honest. I've lost the battle of anything we talked about. But 350 guests.
Wow.
It's going to be nuts.
Yeah,
it's like a big recruitment company.
It's going to be a big party.
Growing a big party. But look, it's not about me. This is about you. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for wanting to tell your story. So obviously I've given you a little intro before this, but can you tell the listeners who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Phillip Atkins. I'm the managing director and founder of Off to Work. So the business has been going for almost 20 years. It was actually founded in 1999. Worked on the business plan, however, during that period, and then did the big leap in 2000 and started the business as of then, really. Started it originally, often had said story in terms of in a back bedroom.
Yeah.
Back bedroom, 2 of us, and then built it up from that point. Interesting times initially. Obviously, we had 9/11 was quite soon after starting the business.
2001.
Which had a big impact in terms of the whole events market and the hospitality market. But thankfully, I suppose that we were small enough at the time that didn't dent us. We didn't know what business should have been beforehand. If you see what I mean.
So let's go back to this. Anyone who's listening to this podcast knows I love the stories of how and why and what. So what were you doing before? Were you a recruiter before?
No, I wasn't. I mean, I worked in the events and hospitality industry and had a massive passion for it. I worked through different sectors. So I worked in hotels. First job ever was working as first job ever was working in a greengrocers.
Yeah.
But then I worked in a karaoke bar called Rocky's Karaoke Bar, which
where was that?
It was in Cobham in Surrey.
Yeah.
It was owned by a guy called Rocky Taylor, who was an ex-stuntman. He did a famous stunt which went wrong. He dived off a roof which was burning. A stunt went wrong anyway. He was fine, but he got a large insurance payout.
Right. And so he started a bar.
He bought a karaoke bar, which was run
as you do. The usual get the compensation payout, buy a karaoke bar.
Buy a karaoke bar, make it a party for your friends, basically. So it was good fun in terms of working karaoke bar. Lots of good stories there. Used to have loads of C and D list celebrities coming in.
Yeah.
But
Chelsea
anyway,
footballers.
Well, probably more like. Fulham are on a great team as well. I'm trying to think more Brentford maybe rather than necessarily Fulham, but we used to get Surrey cricket and Sussex cricket and then a lot of snooker stars. John Virgo's wife worked on the door. It was all a bit weird.
Yeah, that sounds odd.
Yeah, it was. But it was a great experience, and it's one of those jobs where time just flies when you're doing it and you realise how much fun it is working in the industry. I then worked in hotels and then did a degree in hospitality management and then worked in London, what now is the Landmark Hotel. Then went to Madame Tussauds.
Oh, wow.
Worked there for 4 years on the front of house side, then moved into the banqueting side, as it was called then. And then from there, I went to the Natural History Museum, I was operations manager there, looking after, again, the events and catering side of the business. And from there, I worked for a company called First Protocol, which is now called First, which is an event management company. So it sort of went from hospitality, hotels, events.
How did you get into thinking staffing recruitment would be I mean, I understand the transition.
Yeah.
What was the trigger point that made you go? Were you just watching the invoices going out and thinking, I need a bit of that?
Well, there's a bit of that, and a bit of actually where you are working when you're working in these. So when I was working, for example, in the Natural History Museum, especially, and also Madame Tussauds, and also actually with First Protocol, you are indirectly managing people the whole time. So you are employing third parties, be it caterers, lighting companies, sound, florists, etc., to put on events. You see them bringing in team members, and some of those were direct, and then some were, for want of a better word, agency temps in terms of working there. And sometimes the quality was great, sometimes it was iffy, to say the best, and there didn't seem to be the care, there didn't seem to be the passion, there didn't seem to be the attention to detail, and equally as well, there didn't seem to be the systems at times as well. You would see at the Natural History Museum there was the area for children during the day. This is where the staff would change before working in events. And at the end of the night, you would see the brown paper bags being given out with money, brown paper envelopes, giving out money to the staff members after they finished. And you're going, this is very dodgy, and I'm not quite sure it should be doing this way. So we are talking a long time ago now, 25 years ago, whatever it is. So it felt that something better could be done. And as I say, equally as well, they didn't seem to have the systems in terms of how the team were managed, booked, etc. So it was a case of, okay, I really think we can do something better in terms of how the team are trained, how they're engaged, and how they're managed, and how that's presented to clients to make their job easier as well.
So you'd never actually done the job, though, as a recruiter?
No, I hadn't, but I guess that I had managed a huge amount of team members who I was having to manage on a very temporary basis. So, when you're in charge of the Natural History Museum, it might sound like a grand thing, but basically in the evening, there's no one else there. So basically you are in charge of the Natural History Museum when you're operations manager there. And you've got a party which is going on till 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're having to ask a team member who is nothing to do with you at all to get a job done. And there's a lovely chap called James, who used to be a manager of a company called Party Ingredients, and he's gone on to do various jobs as a client of ours. And whenever we meet in a group and a drink, and he always brings up the story of how I got him to mop the whole of the Central Hall in the Natural History Museum at 3 o'clock in the morning on his own. But he did it with a smile. And if you can get people to do that, then I guess it's a trick. And when I say you're not tricking them into it, you're just treating them with respect and empathy and understanding that they don't want to do it, but your job is on the line, because that museum has got to open again at 9 o'clock the next morning, and it has to be turned around. There's no one else to do it.
Wow. So, but still, what I'm saying is, like, there's one thing managing people, there's one thing actually being an internal resource that hires people, but having been an agency recruiter for a long time, there's a skill set that goes into that people underestimate. People I think, massively underestimate what it takes to go out and win business and find candidates and do the end-to-end piece. So how did you then transition and start to plan or learn that side of the job?
Really talking to people. I mean, whenever people join off to work now, we in terms of permanent team members, we do a culture. There's a culture statement which they can all see before they join us, and then I also do a sort of culture briefing in terms of it. And one of the things I always stress to people is that you are your own brand. And in terms of if
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's you are whatever you put out in the social media world or whatever else, it will bite you on the bottom. Or
that's also one-on-one.
Yeah,
like, I would say before I ever did a single thing online, I still believed in myself as a recruiter, and I had a level of performance that I would expect. That I lived to, and that was my brand effectively. Like, my word was my quality standards. You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. Especially in the industry that we work in, events and hospitality, because so often you are in a situation where you do get to socialize with clients. You're going to events. You're in a situation where, and if you take that too far in terms of maybe in an amorous way or otherwise, you just have a few too many drinks and you forget that it's a working relationship. It's not a friend situation. Then people just they look at you slightly differently, shall we say.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, but when you're a year before or so before you decided I'm going to start a recruitment company.
Yeah. So basically I
Or was it a recruitment company then?
Yeah, no, it was absolutely. It was recruitment, as you say, a recruitment and staffing company was how it was. And in terms of, as you say, what was I doing for that year? Basically, it was speaking to people. So it's getting, and I guess if you're asking the question in terms of, how did I come around to do it and how did I grow to be good? It was, I'm going back to the brand bit, it was speaking to people who had been clients. So poacher becomes gamekeeper, or whichever way around you want to look at it. So basically, clients of mine who were I was the client. I was the mattress museum, and I was employing caterers who were employing agencies, and then I was becoming the agency who the caterer were then going to employ. Yeah. So I had gained a good relationship with them. So I was speaking to them and saying, look, where does it fall down for you? What do you need as a service? How can we help? How can we make it better? Where do people screw up at the moment?
I like the approach. It's a very calculated way to start it off.
Yeah. And then equally as well, you use people that you trust and get their advice as well. Yeah. So my father is an accountant. He's 80 and still working. He should stop, but there we are.
Would he be listening to this?
I don't know. He may at some point. Yeah, I'll make sure he does. Yeah.
Dad, well done. Keep pushing. It was Father's Day this week. I hope he treated you well.
He got some chocolates and stuff. He came over for a glass of fizz. It was all good. And but so I showed him the business plan, and he said, well, one thing you've got to make sure you do is you've got to get the financing in place. So before you even try and do this, you have to make sure that your business plan is sold enough to be able to go to a factoring company or a bank and go, will you lend me some money if I do this, or will you do invoice discounting, etc., invoice financing for us to do it? And so that was, I suppose, as you say, in that year of working out exactly how we were going to do it, a lot of it was making sure the business plan was solid. And I always, sorry, I've been put off by your funny refreshing thing.
Yeah, no, to set the scene, we're in an office we share for the podcast, and they've got, I need to get one for our office actually. They've got a little thing right behind where we shoot where it's an alarm clock, I think, or a clock, and then it pumps out a little bit of air freshener every sort of 10 minutes. Yeah. And it does always throw guests, so we're not going to edit this bit out, but I need one for my office.
I might move it actually.
It's why it always smells nice. Yeah, you can move it. Get rid of it. Throw it away. But it's why it always smells nice in here. I wish my office, I could say the same about the Hoxo HQ, but we'll get that sorted out in the next instance. So you've got the business plan. Yeah. It's robust. You've networked. You've spoke to people you know, trust. You've identified the kind of things that were wrong about the current process or what was going. Yeah. And then what? How did it all come together?
Then it was a case of also my brother-in-law is also and I'm pleased he still works for me. There's a lovely chap called Jonathan, and he's a Mr. IT guru. So he's helped us in terms of developing the systems. Very, very thankful to him for everything he's done over the years. So he was engaged as well in terms of how we're doing it, and helped me in terms of putting the systems together, and then working with other friends and colleagues as well, and my lovely wife. I was saying to your colleague that my wife and I worked together for 3 weeks and decided it was going to kill our marriage, so we stopped. That's another trick I would say to other people.
She tells me every time, like, when she hears me work, when she hears me on the phone or anything, she goes, there's no way I could work. And I'm like, what, really? I am quite different. I think I'm quite different outside of work, but I get that. There's too many things going on in the day that it's nice to have that break from that person and have something to talk about.
Yeah, no, it is, absolutely. And as you were saying about your wedding, who makes the decisions at home, which is fine, but then at work, potentially has to be... Exactly. So it has to be different in that respect. So it was I was speaking to, as I say, friends and colleagues, and then working out how we were then going to assess and train people, which we did, basically. We worked out the best assessments that we could, which we've continued to evolve consistently and continually. So it's always looking at how we engage people, how we onboard them, how we make them feel part of the team, and how we also guarantee that consistency of service, which is, organic growth is really the only way to build.
So when you started the business, you had a banking facility that allowed you to leverage to grow.
Yeah.
You had a few kind of family members around you, but how did you go out and win? Did you have a client already like provisionally signed up from your network or so?
No, we didn't. I mean, well, there was when I. Okay, so if you want a little, it's kind of a funny story, I suppose. So when I was working,
it's all about true stories.
Okay, true story. So when I was working for First Protocol, which was my last job before doing Off to Work, and we were doing a piece. So at the time, it was the time of cable TV, and remember the channel called Granada Plus, which used to show Magnum PI and lots of great police shows. Anyway, and they came to us because they wanted to do a marketing activation, which was it was going to be about 6 months long and end up with a party, and it was to retailers or resellers, of advertising space. So they wanted people who are going to sell advertising space on their channels to be engaged in this activity. So we worked on an interactive quiz, which was very unique at the time. It was online, and it was a new quiz question came out every week, and it was done with cartoon Magnum PI characters. And I think it was Coronation Street and others. Anyway, we decided that Magnum was more fun in terms of the client base that they were looking at.
Jack Duckworth wasn't popular enough.
No, not in terms of they worked out in terms of the sort of, as you can imagine, in terms of resellers of advertising space, it was generally blokes between 20 and 30 in terms of the people. So they needed to appeal to those. So the idea was they're going to do this full campaign and then do an event. And as First Protocol, we were an event management company. So it's like, okay, well, we can do all this. And Granada Plus in the end decided to cut the event completely, and they just did the marketing activation for 6 months in terms of the online quizzes. And I was engaged to do the online quizzes while I was working there. It sort of became my project, and I was working with the designers to make it all happen. So when I left, it was like, do you want me to carry on doing it? Because otherwise there isn't anyone in the company who can do it. So they said, yes, please. So I was getting a consultancy fee while I was first setting up, I was doing that, which was probably taking, 5 to 10 hours a week to do my consultancy work.
This is why you said it's not full time for the first year.
Yeah, absolutely. It is that aspect to it. But I mean, in terms of that, as you will know from your own business, you will work 60 hours a week. I mean, that's sort of what you expect to do. And if you aren't willing to do that, it's unlikely that you're going to make it.
I don't even know. You can't even quantify 60 hours, can you? It's just what needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a different level of engagement that I don't think. I felt I was a very engaged recruiter. I was very good at what I did, and I never had a sick day in 5 years. I was that guy that just did what I needed to do. But it's still another level now.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with the name? Where did Off to Work come from? It's a cool name because it is what it is, right? But
yeah, it is what it is.
That sounds like a Love Island. If anyone's listening to Love Island, they'll know I've been watching it too much, because Is What It is on every episode.
Is it? Should we use the word like a lot as well?
Yeah, we should, And don't mug me off would be a phrase that would be used a lot. But anyway, Off to Work.
I came up with it. I just, as you say, it does what it says on the tin, and there was famous comments about get on your bike, get off to work, all this stuff from I'm sorry, I can't remember which politician it was, but it was in the early 80s and stuff.
So then, how did you go out to what did you do to win business and find candidates for this? Like, when you're on your own, you've theoretically got the experience of speaking to people, but now you've got to do it. What's that like?
Because of the relationships I'd had, as I said, so I did become gamekeeper becomes poacher, if you want to look at it that way. So I knew people who I was going to be working for in terms of clients who were willing to give me a go. I would say that it was much easier back then to do that than it is necessarily now. Just business moves on, and the rise, as recruiters out there will know, in terms of RPOs and PSLs, etc. It becomes trickier now for a smaller individual necessarily to work with a larger organisation. But back then it was a bit easier in terms of, if you were the operations manager, you could make your own decision as to who you're going to use. So it was an opportunity for me to do so. So I knew. When I say I knew, I had to prove my case. So obviously, the first time, in terms of from a temp perspective, it was probably 5. In fact, I can tell you, it was 7 staff in East Anglia, which we worked for a company called Blue Food Productions. It was a wedding.
Yeah.
So that was the first staffing that we did, and it was really well received. The team did a good job. I was the minibus driver. Yeah. I mean,
that's the difference of your recruitment. You then go and get involved in the actual delivery of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
My business partner, Amo, was we were both teachers originally, so we both went to Australia with a few other people and got into recruitment out there because my teaching qualification wasn't valid when I got to Melbourne, but his was. I just think we were at an age where we were 24 and we wanted to try something else, and we were a bit too young for it anyway. But the reason I'm telling you is he went into education recruitment.
Right.
I went into IT recruitment, so I had no knowledge. I literally knew nothing about technology. My team members were drawing like applications and infrastructure signs on the walls, and I was just like, whatever, I'll talk and I'll figure it out, and I managed to. Yeah. Whereas Amma went into teaching recruitment, literally primary school stuff that he'd done.
Yeah.
His sell for the next 4 or 5 years till he went and worked with me was like, I will come and do a day for you, and prove the quality of not just me but the agency.
Yeah.
And he got so many businesses from it. And sometimes he used to tell me if a candidate backed off and called in sick or couldn't make it, he would have to dust off the old kit and go in. I'm like, that's nuts. But it's kind of what you did, really. If you got involved in the delivery of the event as well as the recruitment of it.
No, I mean, absolutely, you do, and you've got to make sure that doesn't continue, because it's the easiest way for any business to fall is when that pipeline dries up because you're too busy working till 2-3 o'clock in the morning assisting those clients that need you, but then you've got nothing coming forward.
Sure.
So I mean, I was, but at the same time, you do have to really, when you're, and obviously you've said from an IT perspective you don't need to, but from our industry, from events and hospitality, when you are putting people to work with a client, they expect you to have that experience yourself. So for any of my team to be able to go, yes, we want you to do this, we've done it ourselves, we've been a kitchen porter before, we've washed the dishes, we know what it's like, you've got to go and do it. You've got to have that ground level up.
So what was the first year like? Can you remember that first year?
Can I remember that?
Let's say the year when you went in full time, when you were going for it. How did you perform?
We performed well. I mean,
You were still in the bedroom?
We were, but only for about a year, and then we moved into our first offices, which are in Fulham. We performed well. I mean, we saw good growth. We saw good clients take us on. We were probably surprised of the seasonality of it, which I didn't quite realise, shall we say. We always knew that there would be a seasonality to the business, but probably not to the degree that there was. And equally as well, the short-termism in terms of how it works as well.
Yeah, I imagine in that industry, you win a project, you fill the project, the event happens and that's it, you start again. It's not it's extremely time sensitive as well in terms of that. So literally to the minute almost in terms of when they expect team members to be there, and it can affect the whole delivery. If people are 15 minutes late, it can affect the whole delivery of the event. So there is that aspect to it. So where were you at the end of that? When you moved out into Fulham, was there a team around you then, a permanent team? Or?
So probably there was 3, if not 4 team members I had. I'm trying to remember the progression of it, if you see what I mean.
Were they ex-hospitality that you brought in, or did you get some agency recruiters externally that knew how to?
No, they were members. So the first person was a lady called Melissa Noble. She was a Kiwi, right. And she was over in the UK. I think she was working for us casually, and actually my wife spotted her. So when we said we weren't going to work together, she went, Melissa will be good. So she was brought in, and then there was Hannah Lee and Jess, who again came through the casual side of the business as well. Was it like a traditional recruitment agency where you're on the phones in the day and you're reaching out to new prospects and just registering candidates all the time? Because there's a lot of freelance, agent, just real short-term temp candidates. There must be a lot of volume of people coming through. There's a huge volume, There is a huge volume. There was a huge volume, but I mean, we assess every single team member we take on when we're talking about temporary side. So the assessment takes roughly 7 hours in terms of the assessment. So we do group assessments in terms of when we're doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the onboarding process is big and heavy.
What was it like then, though? Still the same?
Yeah.
Even from day one?
Even from day one, yeah.
Wow.
Well, day one, actually, no. From day one, the assessments were about 4 hours, and then they grew from that.
And would you have like intakes per week or bi-weekly or whatever?
Weekly,
You'd have to structure it.
Yeah.
It's a very different recruitment company than a lot. Like most agencies are about like sitting in an office or networking with clients. Like you're playing musical chairs with people, aren't you? You're moving them, but you're not. Once they're in, they're in. Like you're just waiting to hope they get in and do a really good job.
Yeah.
And you got to keep in touch. But yours is like, it's actually more like the candidate's almost a part of your team. Like you're kind of in it together, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a different. Different model. Very different model.
Even from the permanent side, but I'm sure this isn't unique. And obviously, I'm sorry, my knowledge and experience is very much in the one industry.
Yeah.
But it's when we're doing permanent placements, the time the amount of times that placement becomes a client of ours, in terms of either us then providing temporary services into that person we place permanently, or we're providing them with their next assistant or whatever it might be, is huge. Well, I imagine, so as you say, they do very much become part of the team in terms of part of Off to Work.
Yeah, I love that. So how did it kick on from there? Well, let's talk about 2001. So September the 11th. I was on work experience in year 11. I was working at a sports shop in Manchester. I was in there. It was called like Scott Sports or something. And I remember this big fat woman was telling me what to do all day, and she was like, "Go and pick that up. Go and pick that." And I was just basically putting tennis rackets on shelves and stuff. You know, classic work experience. Yeah. And then I just remember this woman crying, coming out of the stock room, crying.
Yeah.
She's like, their trade centre's gone and all this stuff. And I actually had a naive 15-year-old, had no idea what the World Trade Centre was. Like, I'd never been to New York. I'd never been to the States.
Yeah.
I think I'd only left England once or something at that point. So I was like, I didn't understand the severity of it. But I remember like quite quickly it was like insane. But imagine having a business.
Yeah.
So how would it affect you in the events industry? Because it's over there and you're here.
Yeah. How would it affect it? Well, one, it stopped people doing events. A lot of public events, obviously, where
I suppose it's about any congregation of people.
Exactly.
Was quite scary, yeah.
You know, I suppose if you talk of headline ones, if you remember, the Ryder Cup was cancelled because of it, which obviously was meant to be in the UK at the time. The security aspect, which has never gone away, it's only ever got more. In fact, it was just a change overnight in terms of how people saw security from team members coming into buildings, and how that was then going to go forward.
Can you remember what like that day in the next few weeks was like?
I remember at the time my wife was working in the city. She was working for a trading company, and she called me saying, because some of them were in the US, and you turn the TV on, so I turned the TV on. And the first tower was gone down, and I saw the plane go into the second tower while I was
on live TV.
On live TV, and while that was happening, I got a call. I remember getting a call from a client, Derek Hare, who had still actually booked staff.
You got a memory like me. You just remember everyone.
And he wanted 2 staff for his canapé reception in an art gallery, which it was just surreal. It's like, you know what's going on, Derek, don't you?
He needs his staff.
Yeah, he needs his staff. So there we are. So I mean, it did have a detrimental effect massively. There was a lot of companies it affected very badly, who were obviously much bigger beasts than we were. As I say, our infrastructure at the time was very, very small. Our headcount was small, and we were growing as a company. So it didn't have a huge impact on us. It probably slowed our growth down a little bit, but other than that, it didn't. But it did most definitely have a detrimental effect on the hospitality industry.
So how would you like? Obviously, 20 years is a long time. So let's say the next, 5 years.
Yeah.
What was it? How did the business progress? I don't want to go in every year, granular, but how did it go? Like, so can you remember getting to sort of year 5, year 6, and what that was like?
Yeah, no, I can do. I can do, absolutely. And as if you talk about sort of, I don't know, greatest. Well, success is not necessarily the right word, but you talk about things that I'm most proud about. So Robert is my number 2. He's been with us 16 years, wow. So he's been with us all that time, and we've really started to grow in terms of that. And then Lucy, who is still with us as well, ops director, she's about 13 years, I believe, Lucy,
Yeah.
and Katie as well. So she has been now 11 years with us as well. So we're almost getting to that point. But that, I guess, in terms of that progression, it was kind of interesting to see how it worked. And you think you know, but you don't know. And this chap who came and talked to us, actually, who James McDonald, who was talking about it and going, 90% to 10%, and the other 90% you know nothing about.
Yeah.
And I think that's very true in terms of the way it works. So you think, well, this is our business sector, this is what we're working in, this is how it works, and then something comes from a side, which you hope is a good thing, and actually it gives you different opportunities. So,
how did the national expansion of offices go?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
So the first office was Birmingham in terms of after London, and we were doing the Wentworth World Match Play Championships for IMG with a lead on it at the time. Mark McCormack from IMG was alive at the time, and he had his own chalet, shall we say, which he used to have the stars or the players would come in and celebs would come in and whatever else, and he wanted the staff to be of a certain level, and company called Amadeus, who are based in Birmingham, were catering it, and they asked actually a London caterer called Rhubarb who should do it, and they kindly said us. So we did it, and there was a infamous lady called Linda Cooper who worked for IMG, who had exceptional attention to detail in terms of where the staff looked and how they performed, etc. So the first year we did like 17 staff there, and then actually first year we did 12, second year we did 17, and third year we did 75 staff at Wentworth. And Amadeus then wanted to up their standards up in Birmingham at the National Indoor Arena at the time, and they were like, can you coach team members up to Birmingham? So we were coaching, so taking 50 staff up to Birmingham to do their concerts there and supporting them in that way. And when you're doing that and the staff are having to travel for 3 hours in each direction, basically, so if you think a concert's finishing, I don't know, 11:30, by the time the staff finish 12, so getting back to London at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Depending on where you are in London, it can be south as well.
Exactly.
Once you hit the north of London, it can be a nightmare.
Absolutely. And then you've got the cost aspect from the client's perspective in terms of what they're having to pay for.
Expenses and
stuff. So we say to them, look, if we set up in Birmingham, would you use us? And they were like, God, yeah. So it's like, okay, well...
Just replicate the model.
Exactly. We'll replicate the model in terms of our standards and expectations and who we choose in terms of team members. And
did you find the quality was any different per city? Was it actually like people in London were better, or is it just a case of that you just got to, in any city, there's good people there, you just got to get through it?
It's different now in terms of if you look at the food culture in terms of the UK, you look at Manchester, you look at Birmingham, you look at obviously Edinburgh as well, Leeds, there's and down to Cardiff and Bristol, that in terms of most of those cities there is an amazing food culture, and so people have now been exposed to it and also exposed to service. If you're talking 20 years ago, then I would say that the food culture hadn't necessarily spread as far at the time. So people hadn't necessarily been exposed to events and hospitality or understood it quite as much outside of London. But that changed very quickly. Really quickly, in fact. So, I mean, in terms of finding the people, in terms of finding... We've always recruited on attitude first and experience second. So finding the people with the right attitude who enjoy it, have passion for it, and enjoy serving people, who do it with a smile. Yes, we could find them in Birmingham, most definitely. It's a nice city.
One of the things we've spoken about on this podcast and I've heard in lots of conversation is whether it's international or national, a big part of especially growing a recruitment company is capitalizing on more than just one location. So loads of businesses are now starting to look at the States or Europe or the North or whatever.
Yeah.
Looking back, how would you advise people to, like, what things do they need to think about if they're going to look at a second office? Based on your experience.
Based on my experience. Well, we've been... obviously do your research into it. We are now in Manchester. We were in Manchester in 2008. And 2009 we pulled out of Manchester. So sometimes timing is just wrong. than it was, if you remember, the financial crash. So we opened an office as financial crash happened in 2008, 2009, and Manchester at the time, which huge developments were going up and they all stopped. So it was the wrong time for us to do it. It's understanding any local culture, though, is hugely important. So sometimes the face doesn't fit. People want to be looked after by people who understand them and understand the local environment and culture. So if you are moving into a local area, take that into consideration. Make sure you've got someone who does understand the local culture and people and has the network to make it work.
And what about the complexity of keeping a business?
Yeah.
How many staff did you have when you went permanent? When you went to Birmingham?
When we went to Birmingham, we probably only had, 12, something like that, I would guess. It wasn't a huge number in terms of when we opened Birmingham.
But to keep a culture when you've got such distance.
And we got the first, we got the first hire right. It's a lovely chap called Guy Dory, who's still with us.
Great.
So Guy, again, lovely to have you still with us. He's moved jobs a number of times. So he started in Birmingham, and he wrote to me saying that the person we had as the general manager at the time in Birmingham was wrong and didn't represent our brand and wasn't doing a good job. And he was right. He was fair in terms of it, and he was honest in terms of it. So that person left, shall we say?
Yeah.
And then Katie came on board, and then it was she did very much understand what we were looking to achieve and what we want to achieve, and she has forever done that and has been great in terms of hiring people below her as well.
But to keep a similar culture, when they're not, you can't impact both offices every day or at that level.
Yeah.
What advice would you give people to make sure that they do their best at that?
Sure.
Because I've got that. I want to do that in the future. So I'm thinking personally, how do I keep what I've built here to when I'm not there and it's in a different city?
Yeah, sure. One, make sure your culture is very clear and very strong, so people understand what your expectations are. Two, good isn't good enough, and never be slow to pick people up on things, however small the detail. It makes a huge difference. Even if it's the case of how people leave the sink in your office, it says everything in terms of how they operate. It's making sure that the systems you have in place are very clear as well, and people work to those systems as well. So in terms of the culture statement we talk people through, it is very much a case of following the system until the system has changed. But equally as well, if you think a system change should happen, letting us know as soon as possible, so not sitting on it, not waiting for your 3-month appraisal to say how amazing.
And what about comms back then? Because now we've obviously got Google Hangout or Zoom or Slack or whatever. Like, you can have instant. I went to an office not long ago, a company called Know It. It was the first ever podcast I recorded.
Yeah.
They've got a system, I forget the name of it, but basically you walk in and their Manchester office is on screen and it's live and they can hear each other. It's nuts. And they're like, hey, and they're all waving at me and I was like, what? This is real? Like, it's insane. But back then you didn't have that. So was it just a weekly phone call, or how did it work?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did a lot of traveling until you get the right people in place. Yeah, I mean, it is making sure, it's all the classic things they talk about, management by walking. If you're expecting people to go and do as you want, but you're never there to make sure it happens, and it won't happen. If people think that they can get away with it, if you've hired the wrong people, then they will. But at the same time, you have to believe in people at the same time, and you have to find those gems that are out there, and there are lots of them who do believe in what you want. What they always say, slow to hire, quick to fire. So you take your time in terms of hiring people as well. Yeah.
So you're at 110 now.
Yeah.
What was the kind of growth trajectory like? Because you're at 12 when you went to Birmingham after a few years. How did that? Was it a linear growth plan? Did it go up and down? How did it look?
It's consistently gone up, and it's consistently gone up because we continued to diversify. So you talked about us being a niche, and we are. We're not a general recruiter. We don't do industrial, IT, healthcare, etc. We are very much events and hospitality. But when we first started out, we did events. We literally were doing events, and then we supported hotels, and we split them into sort of sort of 5 now in terms of the way we do it. So we have hotels, pubs, bars and restaurants. We have sports data and cultural venues. We have event caterers, and sometimes referred to as ODCs, outdoor caterers. Then we have contract caterers, and then we have experiential as well. Mm-hmm. So we've continued to diversify those, and then also not trying to use too much management spiel, but I suppose horizontals and then verticals as well. So you have, we now do housekeeping, we now do security. So it's building on what we do, and majority of the time that is because clients are saying, can you help us? So it's a case of going,
you keep hearing what they're asking.
Exactly, yeah, and which is why it's important to keep close to your clients.
Well, we created a business this year, Connects, which is our recruitment brand. So we help recruitment agencies with finding talent for their brand, and it's exclusively sales talent. So where there's lots of rec to recs who look at experienced recruiters or trainees from graduate backgrounds, we firmly look for people with sales experience. So you're looking at your kind of mid to late 20s guys from like car sales, gym fitness sales, or estate agencies or whatever, but they've got demonstrable, transferable sales skills. And the reason we set it up was because we just kept getting asked for it. Yeah. We were running marketing campaigns where they were like, can you get us talent? Yeah. And actually we thought, we can, but we want to do this as a more complete model. So I completely understand, and hopefully there'll be, like I said, we've got a plan to diversify as we keep hearing what the market's doing. Yeah. But in terms of growth of headcount, can you remember when because a lot of businesses get to kind of 40, 50 and they struggle to kick on, but sometimes 30 and it's like we hit that kind of ceiling for a few. Did you go through that?
Yeah, no, I'm sure we did have a couple of years of reasonable stability. I mean, and I'm sorry, I can't remember more in terms of it. But at the same time, I guess the reason I can't remember more is that in terms of, I suppose, other suggestions or whatever else to people, it's if something goes wrong, don't be too bad about it. If something goes right, don't be too high about it. And you've got to keep
remain
exactly.
Constant.
You have to, because we all get, especially in the permanent market, where you think you've got the absolute perfect candidate. They've gone in, fees sensibly large, and then they after 2 weeks pull out for some completely unknown reason. And so we all take these big knocks. So you have to keep that stability. So in terms of it, I suppose maybe I should have charted it more on the wall, in terms of to look back on and whatever else. But it's been fairly stable. And then the UK did go through this decade of sport, which was wonderful for us as well, which the Olympics were obviously part of in 2012. Mm-hmm. And that was obviously 7 years ago now, but that was a wonderful thing to be part of at the time as well.
I moved to London the day when Jessica Ennis and Mo Farah both won that 4th of August.
Saturday.
4th of August. Yeah. My birthday's the 5th, so I moved to, I started my London recruitment career the weekend. It was early September. I did a few weeks in August just to get my head around being home again. Yeah. But it was an amazing time.
It was.
An amazing time. But that obviously brought a lot of work for you guys.
It did bring a lot of work for us, and we looked at doing things differently, which was kind of fun, and that sort of, I suppose, continued to set the way that we do things and make people think, they think of things differently, which is nice. So in the Olympics, it was obviously the case that everyone was going to be pulling on the same talent pool in terms of working there. So 17 months beforehand, so sort of March 2011, myself and Robert went out to Amsterdam to meet up with a supplier over there in terms of, we want to bring over 200 Dutch staff to work at the Olympics, which they helped us with. So they were a student sort of agency who worked over there. So we then went over and did assessments in Holland, so we could onboard them, make sure we were happy with them before we brought them over. And then we took a private school in East London. We took over the grounds, so we had a campsite. And we brought also some of our team down from Birmingham, so a campsite of over 200 team members. And the Dutch were absolutely loved. And the ironic things, they were working in the British pub on the Olympic Park, but they loved working in the British pub and they found it hilarious. Yeah. But they also did did some high-level stuff. Why Holland? One, they all speak fluent English.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah.
2, they have the service standard. 3, they're quite a good-looking race as well, which helps in terms of hospitality and events. Unfortunately,
handsome chaps,
and tall girls. And 4, there's a big hospitality school over there.
Right,
so
okay.
it was running the right time.
And have you carried that on in terms of future events, or was it just the Olympics that?
Well, one of our clients asked if they could bring them back the next year. So it's not quite so easy to do that actually. But, so we haven't continued to do that, but we continue to do, I suppose, fun stuff and different stuff. So we did the European Games in Baku in Azerbaijan in 2015. We did the Asian Indoor Martial Art Games in Turkmenistan in 2017.
Wow, I can tell you love it. I can tell you love the industry.
Yeah, it's fun.
How close are you? So this leads me into kind of where you are today.
Yeah.
So you've built this business, and we've gone into some detail, but you're now at 110 staff, nearly 20 years old. How would you describe your job as the MD now? How does that look on a day-to-day?
It's directional and supportive, I would say, but at the same time, I'd still very much get involved with I suppose, a CRM, client relationship management, and making sure it's right in terms of what we're delivering. You talked about, as you grow offices, how do you make sure the delivery is right? So, and sometimes it's just making sure that you are there to support the team and you've seen the team in action. So Thursday, I'm going up to Edinburgh to support Kate and the team for the Royal Highland Games up there, so working with a client up there. So it is a case of going.
And what will you be like? You actually be thinking about what's going on from an event delivery, or will you be? No,
so from my perspective, it's a case of being there, supporting where I can in terms of, well, as team members arriving, is there anything that can be done to make sure that they know where they're going, they look right, anything else. But equally as well, it's client handholding, so to make sure that they know that we do genuinely care about their business, that we don't take their business for granted. It is, it's a case of going. People want you to have a passion about their business.
Yeah,
they don't want you just to be a case of going, great, that's X on the balance sheet. It's not. It is a case of, okay, these people actually care about our business.
100%. So, are you in the office 5 days a week now?
Yeah. I'm in the office 5 days a week.
Liverpool Street.
Moorgate is where our main office is.
Sorry.
That's all right.
When I came to see you, I walked from Liverpool Street. So
No, that's okay.
Very close.
Yeah, it is. So Moorgate, and then I'm in Richmond, and then I'm in Birmingham next week, and then I'll go down to Cardiff when I can, Edinburgh when I can, Manchester when I can. Obviously see Bristol in terms of Bristol and Cardiff. What
management layer have you built below?
So we have a board, and then we also have a junior board as well.
Oh, nice.
So the board is 4 of us, and the junior board is 10. So the junior board is elected by the team, so it's not elected by the senior board. So right. the team can vote as to who should be on the junior board, which is kind of nice. It's also extremely reassuring, because you are like, well, is it just a popularity thing, or people? And actually, you find that people are quite serious in terms of the people they choose. They do choose people.
What do the junior board do?
They act as a conduit between, I suppose, the team and the senior board, so they will report both up and down, and then they also have the ability to make decisions on what should be done, and a lot of that comes down to, I suppose, the employer value proposition, or in terms of how the team are looked after and how we do things as a company and how we get that right. So yeah, they'll sort of, the idea, I suppose, is to make sure the culture always does stay grounded, and if we're going off piste, then they stop it.
I love it. So tell us about the plans for the future. Where are you heading?
Well, we're opening at Oxford as we speak, literally. So I'm taking an office there as of next week. So that'll be a new branch for us. We've started doing sort of, I suppose, looking at feasibility study for Dublin as well, partly due to Brexit, obviously. Mm-hmm. So if Brexit does happen, as they keep saying, that they'll be the only English-speaking capital in Europe. So, right. And there's obviously been a lot of tech companies and a lot of other companies.
Yeah, there's a hell of a lot out there.
Yeah, so it's a case of, okay, well, it's only going to increase the demand from a hospitality perspective as well. So we're doing a feasibility study on that as well. We've talked a lot at this in terms of what we do from a temp side, but we also do have a perm side of what we do, and it's very much beefing up that talent placement in terms of what we do and looking at it from different angles. So we do work, and I suppose nice things progress, as you do progress, you get higher positions, which then make people understand and actually go, okay, we can see you are a proper talent placement company. It's really, really hard getting the message across sometimes in terms of people still think of us, oh, you're a temp agency. It's like, no, we're not. We do talent placement. We have a talent placement team who do it, even though we've been doing it for years and years. But that message is starting to get across as we place people into higher positions. So once you're sort of into C-suite positions, then people start getting...
The message filters down.
Exactly, yeah.
So what's driving your ambition now? So 20 years in, you could, I imagine, with 110 staff and 9 locations or whatever you're going to have when Oxford opens, you could take a back seat, potentially look at selling the business or whatever. Like, what's driving this 5 days a week, still thinking about, like, you sound like you're so engrossed in it still. The clients still care, like, Matt, what's getting you up in the morning to keep pushing like that?
I want to see all my team do really well out of it, is the honest truth. So it's giving is living, as they say. I don't want to sound too corny, but that's what Tony Robbins said. But I do genuinely believe in it in terms of if I couldn't just walk away and go, okay, great, I've done well out of it, but the rest of my team are like, okay, well, what are we doing now? I want to make sure that we progress it forward and that it has a very bright future and that they all have an opportunity to grow within the business. And
is it something you want to hold on to? Do you want to sell? Do you want to go through any kind of event? Is there an exit plan?
I'm forever being asked if there's an exit plan. Forever. At present, there isn't an exit plan. No, it's very much a case of building it. And we do orbit charts, which for the next sort of 3 years in terms of progression. We don't do it longer than 3 years. And I would say that they change pretty well on a yearly basis anyway, if I'm being honest. Yeah. And that's just the nature of business as it is at the moment. So
looking back, what would you say the biggest mistake you've made as an owner has been?
The biggest mistake that I've made? I guess when we did go to Manchester, obviously, as I say, part of that was just wrong timing. But I sometimes obnoxious is the wrong word. I mean, you feel that we're doing it in every other city. I can go and do it in that city. What's the difference? And it's not the case.
It's confidence, but it borders on like. Have you actually
arrogance,
really done your
research? Rather than obnoxious. So you obviously can never be too arrogant in terms of what you do. Other than that, I would say as well, the speed of change, which ever gets quicker, is... I should have moved things forward quicker than I did. It's too easy sometimes to go, okay, well, this is what clients are asking us for, so that's what I'm going to deliver. But actually... you've got to go ahead from that, otherwise someone else is going to find something that...
And was there a point you remember that you didn't move quick enough?
Yeah, I would say about 5 years ago, probably.
What happened?
Should have produced our app quicker and should have looked at app technology more than we did. So in terms of
You've got an app now?
Yeah. We've had an app now for about 2 years, but we should have done it 5 years.
Registering you to work and communication to candidates, etc.
Exactly, yeah, all of that. So we have 2 apps as such. So we have an app for permanent recruitment, and then we have an app for our casual team as well. So
what does your perm recruitment app do?
That's more job notifications. So sort of if someone has expressed an interest in operations manager's job within London area and we have a new job, then it will send them a push notification in terms of it and take them to the job board, and they can sort of...
There's not many recruiters that have that, though. You know that, don't you? Like, that's still well ahead of the curve. The amount that tell me, we'll build an app and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. I think certain markets, yours is probably very, very like people know you guys and
it's hugely
trust
advanced.
You guys. And,
it's hugely competitive.
I think if you think about massive tech markets and stuff, like there's too many agencies for one to have an app. Like a candidate wouldn't bother downloading it because they just get a call off 50 the next 3 days and they'd be like, what am I going to do with that? But it sounds like you're in a good market where people trust you and you've got a brand, and if they're going to go on and actually download your app, then you must have some level of experience with people. We do. We do have a good reputation, and you obviously build that reputation by continuing to supplying and get it right. So I mean, that's the focus has always been on delivery, both in terms of and I suppose UXP, so user experience, and that's
if people any touch points with off to work, how are they? And if they're not good enough, I'm peed off.
Yeah, I love it. So, final then. One thing I'm really interested in is the personal life of an owner. So, how has your life changed in 20 years? Have you and your wife obviously started it off together?
Yeah.
How is running a recruitment company, a successful recruitment business, how has that positively or negatively impacted your lifestyle and what you've been able to do?
It's definitely positively impacted it. Most definitely. I mean, I was a good employee in terms of, never any issues in terms of being an employee. But at the same time, I was probably always frustrated in terms of not having as much either responsibility or ownership or opportunity as I would have liked. At the same time, I learned lots from those that I did. Sorry, I was slowly going up. So how's it affected me so it's made my life better in terms of having ownership and control to a certain degree, though you are then always answerable to your clients, even if you're not answerable to your boss. Over the 20 years, it is obviously as you build a team, it does change. And I guess it's a case of you go from a point of you are busy delivering to going, actually, I'm not delivering now. What do I need to be doing to actually take the business forward? So it's a change in remit there, which actually is harder. You having to do a lot more thinking rather than just bang, have we got 12 people there tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning? So it is it's changed in that aspect. I do get very involved, as you've said, in terms of it. It's given me great opportunity to see things I would never otherwise get to see.
You get to some pretty cool events.
Yeah, we do get some pretty cool events, and you see some cultures that you would never otherwise get to see. So going to Ashgabat in Turkmenistan in 2017 was one of the hardest jobs we've done.
What's it like as a place to visit?
Well, the city is it's known as the Marble City. It's all white and all has green roofs, and the president is very controlling in terms of that has to be the way it is. Even to the point where delivery was coming from the airport and it was going to be coming into the city in a red lorry. It wasn't allowed. Red lorry could not enter the city of Ashgabat. It's wrong colour.
Green and white.
Yeah, white or a white lorry.
Wow.
Not a red lorry. Red lorry couldn't deliver. And when the president comes into town from his palace, they close the streets for 7 hours. So literally no cars, no walking. And then they have people who go around about 3 hours before he comes and make sure every single window is closed in the city because he's obviously scared of being assassinated. Yeah. So every single window has to be shut and every road is closed when he comes in.
Does he come in often?
The city? Well, during the games, because we were obviously different, then he was coming in often. Yeah. So you're having to work around that in terms of team members getting to venues and also obviously deliveries getting to venues. And it was a very sort of claustrophobic environment is the easiest way to describe it. But yeah, it was. But at the same time, the locals were amazing, and you go there and they're all in sort of traditional dresses. They all look absolutely immaculate. It's staggering to see.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So have you managed to keep that family and work balance?
Yeah, I would say so to a degree. I mean, realistically, you are. I've got 3 children. My wife always says I took 2 days off for the first one. I think I took 3 days, but anyway. And then about 3 days off for the second one. And I might have taken a week off for the third one, I think, because the business was a little bit more mature maybe. But that's it. So, the idea of having, I don't know, paternity leave or whatever else, that doesn't happen. So it's not balanced in that respect. And you do find as well that it's very hard to keep up friendships outside of work while you're doing work as well as family. So Henny and my team always talks about this quadrants in terms of friends and family and work, and I think exercise is the other one he puts into that quadrant, and to keep all 4 going is almost impossible. At certain times of the year you're probably 2 of those quadrants are the only ones you're able to keep going, and then you'd accept that.
Have you would you say now it's different? Like the kids are slightly older. Do you get to spend time with them more at the weekends, or?
Yeah, no, I definitely get more time to spend with them at the weekends. Absolutely, and we want to make sure that anyone in a company is equally as well. That there is the balance there, and it's not always so easy to do. But we're forever tweaking it and working out how we can improve people's lives in work, and support them when they have got kids. And yeah, absolutely. You know, I love it when, you know, people have, you know, Guy, who I mentioned earlier, he took the sort of joint paternity maternity, so he had sort of 6 months off during the year in terms of it. And if it can work for a family as well as for a business, that's all good. It depends on the individual, really. But we do want to support and make sure that people get that choice, I suppose.
Amazing. So look, final thing is, any final words of advice? So a lot of the people listening to this podcast, or I'm hoping who listen to this podcast, are either in the early days of growth, or they're actually not even started yet. They're sat in a recruitment company today going, next year, that's me. I'm going to be the next Phillip Atkins.
Don't be me.
Anything you would say? Oh, he's got notes, he's prepared.
I did make some
Is there any
notes.
advice you'd give them based on your experience?
Most things we talked about, but value time is the big one, I would say.
What do you mean by that?
Too often people don't value their own time, and you end up doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing, and it has a massive impact on your business if you do that. So if you
too much of the lower level, or
it can be too much to the lower level, or it can be
too much just strategy as well.
It can be too much strategy, absolutely. Too much time spent staring at spreadsheets thinking that's going to solve your business, and it won't. It can also be too much time spent with clients who are the wrong clients as well, and it's a case of making sure that, you know, if you're working with clients, that they are an equity enhancer and not an equity destroyer, and you do get some that you have to say thank you but no thank you. And those ones do take a lot of your time up. It tends to be the ones that take a lot of your time who are actually the ones who are then actually having a detrimental effect on your business.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Phillip, sorry, that's
all right.
That's the end of this episode from our perspective. I want to say thanks for taking the time. You're a very busy man, to come all the way over and meet with me and tell the story. I'm hoping that I'm more than confident that the audience will get a lot of value from it. So I appreciate it. Are you happy for anyone to reach out to you directly? And if so, is LinkedIn the best place for them to do it, or would you say email you, or how would?
Yeah, I mean, if people, absolutely, everyone's welcome to reach out to me, and if you do it through LinkedIn, then yes, absolutely, I'll reply that way.
Usually the best place. Yeah, we typically find that most guests get some interaction, people wanting to ask questions or ask for advice or whatever.
Sure.
Obviously, this is going to be aired, I think, next week, so it should be around the end of June, early July. Guys, next week I've got another amazing guest, really exciting guest to be in. There's only a couple more episodes, and we're going to finish season 1 on episode 25. We're going to have a little break, and we're going to come back with season 2. But what I want from you guys is, if you're listening to this podcast and you're enjoying it, please do share. That means comment on posts that we put out on LinkedIn, or share information around the podcast. I just want more and more recruitment owners or potential recruitment owners to learn from other people in the industry. Also, give us a rating on the iTunes store, 5 stars, hopefully, if you're enjoying it, and that will allow Apple to share this podcast further. So tune in again next Thursday for the next installment of the RAG podcast. See you soon.